Hey everyone, and welcome to our Clips and Highlights channel. If you want to keep up with everything Kyle and I have going on, make sure you subscribe to the main Grinding Gear YouTube channel, which is where we actually do these streams. That's right, we stream right here on YouTube. Oh, and sub to the Grinding Gear podcast. Apple, Google, Spotify, really any podcast platform. We're probably there. Thanks. All right, go.
This is Final Fantasy XIV Dawntrail, a reflection, LOL, by Jesse Cox.
MSQ done, and as usual, some of you are curious to hear my thoughts, which is great because I love to talk, especially about thoughts I have. This video, however, took much longer to put together than I originally thought it would. Figuring out what I wanted to say and how best to express it forced me to write a lot of it down and then draft and redraft it all into a script and somehow include all I've got swirling around up there on the old noggin. And the question is, where do I even start with Dawntrail? I feel like in order to talk about this story, we need to start in the last expansion. Endwalker was the culmination of years of storytelling and loose thread pulling finally paying off. I cannot stress how much I enjoyed Endwalker, not just as a game, but as an experience. I don't claim to know how you felt. I don't know if it was just my life experiences or age or what, but the message of Endwalker really stuck with me. It's a beautiful look at purpose, existence, loss, and existential dread. I laughed, I cried, I came out the other side feeling refreshed, like in my soul, man. Was it a perfect experience? No, there's plenty of room for critique. Sometimes it felt like you were running from story moment to story moment, but that was easily forgiven on my part because the entire time I was like, well, they do have a lot of story to wrap up, so this is fine. It's really what I wanted. No matter what they did right or wrong, they delivered on an emotional connection that I didn't even know I could have with the game. All of this is to say that I, like most of you, was very curious how they'd handle the follow-up, especially considering they just ended a 10-year story arc. How do you start over in an MMORPG? Because you'll notice it is not done often, mostly because it's incredibly hard to do. It's the Dragon Ball Z problem. You've battled and defeated the greatest threat in the universe. Where can you possibly go from there? As far as I see it, you've got three options. One, you reset the main character's power level, removing all they've gained and starting them over. Two, a new and even more powerful threat arises that you didn't know about before that is somehow stronger than the universe-ending threat. Or three, the story takes on an entirely
not into
different
shonen at all to an MBA level understanding of shonen.
focus away
And
from
both
the
are valid. I
previous
want to be
main
very
character.
clear. Both are valid. There's nothing I find more annoying than when I critique something and someone's like, yeah, but that's not what they're going for. I'm like, yeah, but we can still talk about it. We can still talk about it. Sorry, continue.
Cons to each, especially in a video game. If you reset the character's power level, sure, it's the easiest way to say we're starting fresh, but also it completely negates anything gained over the last, in this case, 10 years. From a Final Fantasy XIV player standpoint, we all see people complain about job changes. Can you imagine if they just started everyone over at level 1 again? Oh my god, the outrage. That said, it would finally allow the devs to create a fresh start for new players who may not want to go through the previous 100 hours of content to catch up. Creating a new threat is always an option, but creating a new, even worse one often cheapens everything that came before. This is one of the big problems I have with a lot of MMORPGs, because they're purposefully designed not to end and to keep people playing as long as possible. They consistently come up with an even bigger bad guy you weren't aware of until now, and yeah, I guess it's fine and serviceable in most cases, since I firmly believe that most MMORPGs people are not playing for the story. They're, you know, about the community and playing with friends. But in the case of Final Fantasy XIV, where story is the thing, you can't really fight the literal embodiment of despair at the edge of the universe, then immediately be like, there's actually something worse. That would be crazy. So we come to our last category, pick a new focus. And I think it's safe to say that was the choice of the dev team for Dawntrail, not for the long run obviously, but as a break from the escalation and to introduce a new land. It's an attempt to do something different, and sometimes that lands well, and sometimes you wonder what the hell they were thinking. With that said, it allows your character to continue being the biggest badass in the universe, while also introducing new characters, cultures, lands, and concepts. And let me be very clear, I understand why some people might not like that. We just went from being the main character in a story about us, our past, and what it means to be a hero, and it's jarring to suddenly be second fiddle to a character we barely know and who you may not even like. And I guess because for months before launch on various podcasts and shows, I had this attitude of, this is going to be them throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what sticks. Kind of a Realm Reborn vibe. None of it really bothered me. I was never really a huge fan of Realm Reborn. I quit at level 40 for years. So I was more excited about the hints we'd get about the future rather than what the main story of this expansion would be. And maybe that's my bad, because while everyone's talking about Wuk Lamont or Solution 9, I'm over here freaking out about the new MacGuffin, potentially doing some sort of Indiana Jones style quest where we follow in the footsteps of our past life, or that sweet Malala lore. In fact, I've been over here dropping predictions about what we're going to see on every podcast and show that will let me. I am fully convinced we are going on some sort of Azemgers Assemble storyline. Yeah. And I don't know if that's cope, and frankly, I don't care because that's awesome. I was like, dude, let's go. So if this whole thing is the start of us going down the adventure to be like, it was always us. Like, yo, that would be awesome. But in the immediate, I was mentally prepping for a Realm Reborn. And I think we got something akin to that, and a little bit of Stormblood too. In both cases, I firmly believe we were not necessarily the main character. In A Realm Reborn, we're caught up in events orchestrated by others, and in Stormblood, it is very clearly Lisa's story. Both serve to introduce new lands, concepts, and characters that will later be important to the story they intend to tell, and when they pay off oh so well. And that's really how I feel about Dawntrail. This is the start of something new. They're laying the groundwork and decided to do it by introducing another part of the world through the eyes of a character who lives there. A character who barely knows us. We're just a friend of a friend who was asked to join on an adventure to a distant land to help them with what any other day of the week would have just been a side quest for us. There were many times during this story I actively called out like, just let me off the leash. I can one-shot this guy. But I had to sit back and watch someone else make the choices, screw up, and overcome their mistakes. At first, it was kind of frustrating. I think I said it more than once that this must be what Ardbert felt like. Unable to...
Holy shit, that is the best Dawntrail take I've heard.
That's pretty good.
That is the best.
That's pretty good.
That is great.
That's way more interesting than I wanted to be the main character, because you're a silent protagonist. You've never really been the main character. Like, it's other people's character.
I disagree.
You can disagree. I don't think so. I do not like the I want to be the main character again, because I don't think we've ever been the main character. We have famous friends that make us who we are.
I think that is a bonkers read.
Interesting. Do you want to explore that now or keep going?
No, because you're going to get dogpiled. I know chat's going to agree with me, and we're going to be here for a while.
I don't know. I can hand select some nice ones.
You're doing the I don't know to be interesting on stream, right? You are aware that everyone universally agrees that the Warrior Light is the main character.
We are the most boring character there is, though. We're constantly surrounded by people who are more thrilling.
I'm not talking about from a script writing perspective. I'm like, yeah, we are an audience insert 100%, but like the end of Ben Walker doesn't happen with like. I think we might be actually having. I think we agree, but I think we're missing on semantics
because we just agreed on Ardbert, so I think we 100% agree. But how we got to that conclusion is very different.
But like the final scene of Endwalker is us versus Xenos for a reason. It's the main character versus the villain.
Yeah.
So you can agree that we're barely a character, which is true.
Okay.
But I think we're the main character.
Let's continue this on another date. We both agree at the end.
Actively do anything, being forced to watch us make mistakes and grow, even when things got truly terrible. He couldn't fight our battles, but he stood by our side for all of it until the end. And that thought alone made me reevaluate Shadowbringers and previous expansions. Certainly, we feel like we're the hero throughout our entire time playing, but it really isn't until Shadowbringers and the events that take place there do we actually become one. And Ardbert is there to talk to us and guide us, not as a mentor, but as a friend who understands us.
If you need a push, I'll be right there behind you. If you lose control, I'll do my best to stop you. So, let us be about it, hero.
Then I started thinking about what a hero was, which, as Graha narrates, and I believe is the message and moral of the story, a hero isn't the person who goes around beating the crap out of monsters. A hero inspires others to greatness, and it's repeated throughout the story. We who walk before may lead those who walk after. My friends, we literally walked to the end. Once I got into this mindset for Dawntrail, the experience of the entire expansion changed. Yes, it's our vacation that ends with a weird sci-fi twist, but mostly we bring a smile and understanding to Waklamot as she experiences a hero's journey, roughly the same one we went on over a 10-year period, but for her, in just one expansion. Dawntrail contains the world building of A Realm Reborn, the machinations of Heavensward, the tale of a young woman trying to lead her people in Stormblood, otherworldly twists of Shadowbringers, all culminating with the main character being forced to tackle existential questions similar to Endwalker. Even some of the characters who missed the final zone of Endwalker, Kryl and Erenville for example, got to have their existential moment that we all had back in Ultima Thule. Does it land completely or satisfy everyone? Clearly not. But once I was in that headspace, it just resonated with me. Maybe it's being a former teacher or just being on the older side of content creation, doing this for nearly 15 years and seeing young talent come up after you and do amazing things. I guess I'm just more than happy to help Waklamot in any way that I can. She's a joyful, spirited youth of a trope who saves the day by making friends.
Should totally be vomiting during that scene. Non-stop.
Screw that, man. Can we talk about the complete like break of canon for the actual trailer for Dawntrail, where she's just having a great old time on a boat on the actual ocean?
Oh, I didn't even think about the trailer
makes
implications.
me more mad every time I think about it. Every time.
Damn.
It would be a weird trailer. I understand why they didn't do that, but it really pisses me off.
Introducing your new playable character type. Cat just going off the side of a boat.
Yep.
I feel like after coming out of 2 expansions where they were definitely trying to make you cry, I found it cute. Plus, it reminded me of what the Warrior of Light used to be like before we went down the rabbit hole of despair. With that said, however, it does bring up a major issue with the dev's choice to make the game Waklamot focused. You're playing a video game. Sitting by and letting someone else solve things or take the lead while you just stand there like, oh, do I nod now? Is kinda lame. In fact, multiple times during this expansion, I was thinking, I could just call up some dragons, or Sid, or Doma, and we could handle this all right now. But then I had to readjust and remember that I'm just here to help. It's my vacation. Her journey isn't ours to take, which is why we're not interfering. We're just being supportive. Like I said before, we in this moment have become Ardbert. We'll be right behind her if she needs a push, but it's not on us to do this. If Waklamot gave up, we'd probably just go find something else to do. And that can be frustrating as a player. From a storytelling perspective, I think it's fine. Our character has grown so much, we are now supporting others and imparting nuggets of wisdom. It's fine character growth. But as a video game, it's not necessarily something I would prefer to play, especially if an upbeat cat girl isn't something you enjoy. Again, going back to Stormblood, where the focus was Lys. Rewind time with me, if you will. There were a lot of people out there who did not like Lys. Exact same vibe. But Dawntrail, just like Stormblood, and this is a hill I'm willing to die on, has some amazing dungeons and raids and music and visuals.
No, surely not, Jesse. How dare you get off that hill? No one agrees with that point, you madman. No one has complimented the art, the music, the dungeons, the raid content, or any of the trappings around Dawntrail. Jesse, get off that hill.
What a bull. Why would you say something so controversial?
Can't believe it.
Graphics, locations, all that stuff. It's beautiful. It's some of the best work they've ever done. Plus, it opened up the world dramatically, just like this expansion has done. And after focusing so heavily on Lys, She retired into the background as the leader of a nation, and now when she shows up, no matter what you thought of her, you're like,
I tell you, my biggest problem with Dawntrail is that the robots do the lease walk, and I'm dead sick of that lease walk.
The lease walk.
Get a new animation, like now. I'm sick of the lease walk.
It's just the female here walk.
No, it's special. It's this one. And you propel yourself with your hips. And the robots do it, and it's so jarring. It happens all the time. They're always doing it.
oh, damn, Lisa's here! I have a feeling that as the story goes on, it's going to be the same way with Wuk Lamont. Although, they really haven't managed to overcome the issue that was a major problem in Stormblood, and it's the same problem here for this expansion, I think. The pacing's kind of all over the place. Yes, Dawntrail does an excellent job for lore nerds like myself, giving me just enough to put together threads of past knowledge, like learning the script on the walls and the cenote are ancient island Lalafell texts, and knowing that a journal entry mentions ancient Lalas who fled an island between the calamities. And here I am, not even halfway through this expansion, thinking, so how on earth did Lalafells from our world manage to travel to another reflection? And then I'm like, oh my god, that conversation Emmett and Hythlodaeus had, Endwalker, where they were like, yeah, Asm ran into a volcano the other day, that was pretty crazy. And now I'm thinking, volcano, the one on the island? How does that work? What's the time difference? It was an awesome moment for me, and I was so happy they were doing that. But on the flip side, things like Zoralja going from being kind of a dick to complete psychopath, off screen in a time warp of 30 years, didn't really land for me at all. Or the pace at which we dealt with Valagramanda. We see the boss is set free, we fight the boss in such a quick succession that it didn't come off as any sort of threat at all, despite being told repeatedly how much of a threat it was. Which is hilarious when the repercussions for Bakul Jaja.
Well, and the part that bothers me is that Valagramanda takes some of the threat away from interdimensional fusion being this violent act by stealing the storm and the earthquakes, if you choose to believe that that was Valagramanda breaking free. Or was it always interdimensional fusion and it was on its way? But why was it earthquaking later? And the hurricane and stuff? Or cyclone, depending on what hemisphere we're in, because the map might expand northern someday.
It would be a typhoon.
Typhoon.
That's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
It's hurricanes here. It's It's like if you get hit by a hurricane in Japan, it's a typhoon.
Oh, because that's based on the coast, but this would be America. So I think it would be a hurricane. I'm not sure. I think we were in South America though. Anyway.
Just setting it free are almost non-existent. Like, dude, people could have died. In fact, after that, Bakul Jaja gets a near instant, his parents were shit, so you can understand how he became a bad egg. Let's redeem him and make the internet horny. And again, to be clear, it wasn't anything that really...
Storm.
What?
I'm just they said it's a hurricane. Emphasis on the HYUR.
Mm-hmm.
But it was noticeable. It doesn't stop the fact that in the end, I did in fact think Bakul was the Bakulist, but it's undeniably weird pacing. I think maybe because, like me, they were focusing on threads for long-term development, so threats like a boss you fight at level 93 aren't really that important. But up until that battle, everyone sure talked like it was important. But it just turned out to be another step on our quest to help Wuk Lamont sit on the throne. And I think it's kind of a clever way to introduce new peoples and cultures to us, especially considering we're incognito the entire time. No one knows who we are. Hell, Wuk Lamont doesn't even really. And the game does a great job of reinforcing this over and over, from Mamulja mentioning their friends who went to Eorzea, who we definitely killed, to Wuk Lamont asking us to stay and serve as part of her staff. You, me, everyone knows that is not happening. But again, she doesn't really know us. Not only does this expansion serve as a vacation from our world-saving antics, but also a vacation from the responsibility of ourselves. There's no way we're just gonna stay in Tuliolol ever. So we ditch almost immediately and go to Dinosaur, Texas with Erenville. Quick side tangent before we move on here with the rest of the story. I must mention my biggest disappointment with this expansion. This guy right here, Jaja Jafar.
Yeah.
He had so much I'm actually the big bad potential, And I'm just gonna say it was way better fleshed out as a character just from a few lines that I thought for sure Zoralja would be killed off by this guy. And the fact that this happens, look, I'm still holding out hope my boy will return, but color me disappointed. Perhaps the reason I enjoyed him as a side character was because he was just so straightforwardly evil. I knew who he was right away. Meanwhile, Zoralja was dealing with the expectations of greatness and trying to be better than his father and all those sorts of things that weren't ever really given time to develop on screen. And I think that's the case for a lot of characters in this expansion. They were never really given the time for us to connect with them in any sort of meaningful way. There were just so many of them, and so much was going on. I 100% believe the Scions should not have been part of this story till the halfway point. If anything, this story should have been about you joining Erenville and helping Wuk-Lamont, with Kryl tagging along because of her story reasons. No twins at all. Despite me loving the twins, they should have just stayed in Garlemald for the time being. This could, one, serve to reinforce the idea that the Scions are still at least publicly disbanded, and two, give us plenty of time to learn more about not just new characters, but also flesh out the storylines for Kryl and Erenville. And in this made-up scenario, I'm fine with Thancred and Urianger being there to help Kona, but like, they don't need to be. They could stay behind if I'm being honest. Estinian, on the other hand, needed everywhere, all the time. More Estinian, please, thank you. But I'm convinced this was a major issue. I don't think they knew what to do with the Scions, but we all know we love them and don't want them not to be a part of the story. I get it, it's a tough call to make. In my perfect world, we'd have plenty of time to learn about the 4 claimants to the throne, characterize them a bit more, maybe make Bakul Jaja someone who we really want to cheer on, so when it happens later, it's like, yeah! Create that deep reasoning behind Zoralja's betrayal. Give Wuk-Lamont and Kona more opportunities to develop their connection. Then, when the big battle moment occurs later, and all the dragons show up, which admittedly was very cool, the Scions could arrive just like they do, and we get like a Kryl said you might need a scene, and then just like we see, they stomp the enemy. Like I said before, we're the biggest badasses in the universe. This enemy is nothing. It would have been a great moment. Yeah, sure, we'd miss the Scions at the start, but when they all finally show up, it would be a reason to cheer. Just like in the game when a few of them do arrive later, I was excited to see them. It's moments like that with a few changes I think could have done wonders for this expansion. I just keep thinking if, for example, Zoralja was given more of a gifted youth approach to his story. You know, the kid who's told he's amazing in his youth and by the time he's an adult completely burns out because he never really had to practice or work for anything. I think that'd be an amazing approach. Zoralja could be crushing the early stages of the contest, maybe even helping others because as far as he sees, like, we're kind of weak and we kind of suck and he's doing so much better than us, so he'll still help out, but he definitely deep down knows he's gonna win. Until he faces his father's echo and loses, realizing that despite what everyone has said, he is in fact not better than his father. Then to see his lesser Wuk-Lamont win, it could send him into some sort of narcissistic collapse, and that's when he really loses his way. He starts to become bitter and angry, and cut to 30 years later.
And that would that would give him a reason to stew, which I think is the weird part about the 30 years that we all kind of feel is like, why for 30 years did he act the exact same way? And he just emerges himself. He had no growth in the time period, except for what we're clearly going to do in the patches, which is meet mommy baby mama, and you know, the lab and stuff.
Yeah.
Pardon me, I hit a button, so we might need to do some skipping around.
Sir Wuk-Lamont win? Crazy thing is her father, plus also his lesser Wuk-Lamont win. It could send him into some sort of narcissistic collapse, and that's when he really loses his way. He starts to become bitter and angry, and cut to 30 years later, after he's been stuck in that time warp, my man's just been stewing so long about his father and his family, and his desire to win and rule and do better than everyone else, it would add so much weight to the murder of their father, plus also make Wuk-Lamant's decision to kill him all the more heartbreaking. Because the guy she knew just days before, who was terribly flawed, but still a good brother,
Jesse, you're right,
is no longer the man she sees before
her. He would have gone in the
crazy thing is,
oh my god,
kind of is what happens, except it's not really given any time to develop on screen.
Yeah.
We just have to assume that is what has occurred.
Yeah.
All right, enough nitpicking for now. Let's get
Are
to
you
the
sure
meat of
about
the
that?
story.
Where's the bar?
Solution 9,
I think that's
the
like,
endless.
pause for a sec. I think that's like pretty damn fair nitpicking because it's not a complete takedown and it's not even that different from what actually happened. But he's focusing on like there should have been more character change over the course because I see some people, even Nahuel, is being like, that's what happened. I'm like, not really. What Jesse's saying is like, this character is the same from like the moment we meet him to the moment we kill him. There's not a change. Zeralja's a dick the first scene he's on camera.
Have you ever met anybody who has a broken computer and it's been that way for years? It's just part of their character. It doesn't matter. But if you met somebody whose computer broke last night, they're insane. They're desperate. They're trying to solve the puzzle. And if you put that person in a portal and made them sit there for 30 years wondering how they can fix their computer, they're going to be a completely different person by the time you meet them again. And that's what he solves here. Yes, it's the same end. We get the same Zeralja, and in that way it's the same. But the motivation and that drive to extremes had to come from somewhere. And I think that's why he's also pointing at Jafarja and being like, why were you here? You didn't add to that through line. You only confused it.
Yeah. No, that's fair. Again, people are disagreeing, but I continue to disagree. So let's move on.
And Sphene, all of which were supremely interesting, but just, again, not given nearly enough time. Yes, I was completely invested for lore reasons and the unanswered questions to be revealed, but story-wise, it all happened rather quickly. And in that, at least as far as I saw, also kind of negated the message of the first half of the expansion. In my mind, the whole point of the contest was for Waklamot to go on her, I'm learning about the peoples of Tyrol and trying to understand their cultural differences in order to lead them and unite them for the better. But then the reveal that the Malmuja are actively trying to create two-headed children, resulting in countless deaths and the rise of assholes like Bakul Jaja, I assumed the lesson she learned there was some cultural traditions are actually terrible and shouldn't be respected. That as a leader, you sometimes have to call people out on this who have lost their way and show them a better one, even if they've spent generations at it. But then seeing Waklamut so easily taken in by Sphene, despite seeing how entirely messed up the society she created is, and how their cultural traditions of erasing people from memories is totally bonkers. The amount of times I was like, Waklamut, do not trust this woman! Yet at the same time, for us, because of everything we know and have been through as characters, Sphene and Zeralja never really felt like a threat. Again, it has the vibe of a side quest. I kept thinking, these villains are punks. I could handle this. Just let me. And that's reinforced at the end when Sphene teleports everyone out of the room and is like, you seem like a guy who needs to be...
You know what? Y'all need to go play healer. That's your problem. When I see a problem, I think to myself, oh my God, I'm going to have to like schedule it. I'm going to have to get 7 other people. I'm going to have to find someone who knows what the hell they're doing. I hope my DPS can carry me through because I'm just here for the health bars after all.
Finish your joke.
I'm being slightly serious that I do think that hearing more about him talk about it's warped my perspective on, because I do not think I'm going to whip out my cards and kick your ass at any point. I think I have powerful friends who can kick your ass.
Oh, that's why you don't feel like the main character.
That could very well be. That could very well be.
You play a healer. That's fair. I'm sorry for taking that from you.
But you were about to.
I was going to say,
different subject.
I don't think Sphene is 100% like a world-ending threat, but I think creating your own heaven, basically making yourself a god, I think Sphene is a worthy enough threat. I wouldn't use the word chump to describe Sphene by the time we fight her.
I think there was a lot of razzle-dazzle in her society, too. I did not find Wook being seduced by it bad. Why does razzle-dazzle bother you? Like, it was, you know,
yes.
There's electrope everywhere, and like you walk in there and people all have things on their heads, and you know, it's an exciting thing.
Okay.
You could be easily seduced by it.
deleted right now. And that same knowing what we know as the characters we're playing for the last 10 years impacted the moral quandary this expansion tried to present. A world created to keep the memories of the dead alive. Sphene being an AI designed to protect her people at all costs, seeing loved ones once thought lost and being forced to say goodbye again. There's a lot of good stuff there, and in the context of Kryl, Erenville, and Wak-Lamont, who haven't had their Ultima Thule moment, that's pretty emotional for them. But because we, the player, and our character have already had ours, we already came face to face with despair, we and our friends were willing and did sacrifice ourselves to save everyone who was back on our world, the idea of shutting down servers to stop an AI queen from killing all those people we just got done sacrificing for, just to keep the memories of the people who were dead alive, I was like, yo, shut her down. I have already experienced something like this and come out the other side. The hell I'm gonna let someone try and trick me with the memory-based recreation of my friend's hot mom. But again, all the story we're getting there is not for us. It's for Wak-Lamont, it's for Kryl, it's for Erenville. The thing that's for us is all the little hints of what's to come. And I absolutely loved that, let's be very clear. Alexandria was awesome. I enjoyed all of it because there were things that I was like, oh, what's that mean? I loved the Final Fantasy IX references. I loved walking around in the volcano, potentially getting more Asm lore. And what can I even say about the key, Sphene's crown? Okay, a lot actually, and we will. But again, the pacing was so fast-paced, and it wasn't necessarily about us. There's also preservation, which I don't really know what that's about. There's Zoralja's kid? Who the hell's the mother? What's that about? What's going on there? For the life of me, the entire time I was playing, I thought that was a clone. And just when I thought we were going to get answers to that, they were like, have you heard of Otis? Because let's talk to him for a minute. Which, by the way, love me some Otis. I guess what I'm trying to say in this video that has probably gone on way too long is that I found so much to love in this expansion that I focused on that, and I enjoyed that tremendously. I mean, I was deep diving theory crafts that probably don't make any sense, but felt like they might. For example, when Sphene uses the key and it opens the portal above, why does that look so similar to the portal in the Nier raid? Is that coincidence?
Oh, I wasn't going there.
Is that something important?
I wasn't going there.
Probably not. Who knows? I focused on it and I thought it was neat. So I'm over here just excited and waiting for patches. Come on.
I was about to fart off in my own direction. Okay, go for it, Jesse. You make up something else.
Zemgers.
I
now,
mean,
maybe
it's explaining
like
another world coming into our world, even if it's a reflection or
It could just
like
be visual. Yeah.
I'm fully in the don't think about it too much on the Nier raid camp.
Oh yeah, no, I don't.
Maybe
I don't
to
think
my
of that.
detriment one day. I will be so happy to be wrong about that if the Nier raid ends up being lore relevant in the future. Cool. But for right now, I'm like, don't worry about it too much. It's just a representation of what it looks like when other worlds visit ours.
I think it looks like the Star Shower. I think it looks a lot like that, which is interesting to run with for a little bit.
It's a circular design in the sky. I mean, at a certain point, I think they're all going to look kind of similar.
I can't believe I didn't make the meme. Be sure to check your children's candy, because that's not candy. That's an image of the Star Shower that'll give them flashbacks to.
No matter what you think of Stormblood, the patch content is some of the best they've ever done. The run-up to Shadowbringers was amazing, and I'm holding out hope we'll get the same here, especially with all the different fun things they're trying to introduce, which we should definitely talk about because that's really what I want to talk about, and I'm willing to go down the rabbit hole and just have fun with it because that's really what I care about. I love theory crafting. First, it is very clear from this expansion and previous expansions that our original self, the last Azem, was up to something, especially since they weren't around in any capacity during the final days. And as we learned from the Pandemonium raids, informed Elidibus that we were coming to him. So how did previous us know that? Something's up there, and I assume it's all timey-wimey. My hope, of course, is that the new MacGuffin, the key, will lead us down the path to finding out more, and potentially the main arc of Final Fantasy XIV to come. Could Azem see the future, know of our previous victory, but see some sort of domino effect that leads to something worse later on? My hope, and I'm just gonna put it in this video so we have it on record because I've been talking about it for years and years and years, all the way back in 2021, because Azem is the traveler, the explorer, and so obviously us exploring, we as Azem are going to discover more of the lore of who we are. but I love the idea of us going on some sort of world-spanning adventure, maybe
Pause,
even
what?
reflection.
What did you just say?
Oh, JP's just like bending over, being like, "Is my cat in the trash can? What's going on down there?" Like, just the music hard cuts. It's so flatly delivered. It's fabulous. It makes 2021 seem like 20 years ago.
It really does. It really does.
Is the traveler, the explorer, and so obviously us exploring, we as Asm are going to discover more of the lore of who we are. But I love the idea of us going on some sort of world-spanning adventure, maybe even reflection-spanning adventure, where we have to follow in the footsteps of our former self. Not only learning about who we once were, but also learning what they were up to. Maybe we may not like who that person was. Or maybe on this quest, in order to get to the end, we must have a complete version of ourselves. But the only way to do that is to draw everyone together, all the other reflections of us, and become some sort of, I don't know, Azemgers Assemble team? I think it would be fun. Plus, there's all sorts of other things that we don't really know about, but have become a thing here at the end. Sphne's crown, for example. Why show that screen?
That
Is it
Jesse
because
face,
it will in some way bring her back? Or is it deeper and maybe the symbol on the crown is part of our Asian mask? And don't even get me started on my crackpot theory that the shoe bill, the one we all thought was associated with Emmett, is actually Azem's familiar who's been watching over us. As you can tell, I'm putting all my chips into this basket because I really want it, and I think it'd be super fun. Even if you don't, I do, and I'm making this video. So that's what engrossed me in this expansion. It's what I wanted. It's what I was excited for. They gave me
your own
just
video.
enough to
This is
kind of
Jesse's
believe
video.
that maybe I'm correct. And the seeds planted here could grow in any number of ways, maybe ways I'm not even thinking of yet. But I'm excited for the future of what the game potentially could be. And that's why delivering a fine but not great expansion doesn't mess me up all that much. This is the start of a new adventure. It's hit or miss, and it could be the start of something potentially amazing. Sure, it could lead to failure. That does happen, but knowing where the game came from and how they've listened to players and how they've delivered and overcome previous setbacks, there is so much good here that any complaints I have about story isn't going to quelch my excitement for where this can all potentially go. And now that the expansion's in the past and there's nothing I can do to change any of it, the only thing left to do is forge ahead. Here's looking to 7.1 and the patches beyond. I'm really excited, and I hope maybe a little bit you are too.
Wow, I can't believe this man. I hope he didn't read comments.
There's nothing I can do to...
Because I assume they're just arguing about Dawntrail and nothing to do with what he actually put in 50% of the video, which is his own
Where can this all
excitement.
go?
Yeah, his own excitement about places this could go and places he would be excited for it to go.
I mean, that's with Dawntrail specifically, like that's what I'm noticing. Like the like our MSQ videos, like the views are significantly lower than every other expansion to this point, but the comments are higher than almost every other MSQ, like per video, almost every other MSQ video we've done. And like, which I only have so many analytics. There are a lot of analytics I can look at. One that doesn't exist is did a commenter actually watch? I would love to see that. I would love to see the percentage of commenters that actually watch the video. Because what I read from that is a lot of people just see that it's a video about Dawntrail and they click, they complain, and they leave.
Shout out to the commenters who edit their comments after you get to the point they were arguing with.
Yeah, there's at least 3 of you on the regular, and I want you to know I really appreciate
We love
you.
you out there.
Yeah.